Hey, you guys. So today I just wanted to go over a little mini success story. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I will give you guys enough detail. It's a personal success story so that you guys, hopefully this motivates you, and hopefully hopefully this is just a good example of kind of whatever, manifesting, whatever that we talk about on here. I think it's a great little case study example. So, you know, I had not been putting energy towards or intentionally really manifesting like a relationship or a partner or a lover or whatever have you, until it was about 2 weeks ago, I think. I was like, you know what? Like, I had a family friend come visit, and I respect this guy a lot. And I've just, like I said, I have not been focused on that. And my dad was talking to him, and they were like, oh, like, he doesn't have any, like, significant other. Where's your girlfriend or whatever? And he was like, man, like, he's like, you're a young man. Like, you should be having like a bevy of girls coming in and out. Like, you should be having like, and I was like, man, yeah, you're right. Like, and I've had that before, more so when I was living in LA. Like, there's just so many more people there, there's so many more opportunities, and being in a place in the Midwest here, there's just not as much. But anyways, long story short, I was like, okay, I downloaded some dating apps, and I started putting it in attention that, okay, I'm gonna meet up with somebody cool, I'm gonna meet up with somebody attractive, somebody that I vibe with, yada yada. So my parents, they are in this house right now. Well, they're actually out right now, but they had just left to go on a trip to Barbados, right? I randomly am just going on a walk in the neighborhood out here. There's like a golf course and stuff out here. And they're good friends with the neighbors over here. And I'm friends with them too. I mean, they're really cool. They own a farm over here. My dad does. And then she goes in there, and she's always like working with the farm and working on the farm with the animals. And she's just like a really cool, really positive energy type of person. She's also a pastor. But she's not like what you would normally think of as a pastor. She's just really friendly, really, she likes to drink wine a lot. But that's besides the point. Point being, I randomly am walking, and they're having a party for the Derby, the Kentucky Derby that happened a couple weeks ago. So, her husband like sees me walking, he like waves me over, he's like, yeah, like, come on through. So I'm like, oh, okay. So like I go in there expecting it to be a bunch of like older people, because they're like my parents' age. But I go in there and I see this girl who's like looking pretty cute. I'm like, okay, like she's pretty cute, whatever. And I just like, I'm like walking around. I like went to the bathroom for a second, came back out, and then the lady, I'm not gonna mention names, I just feel like I don't want to say anybody's names, but she introduces me. She's like, oh, and this girl's here by herself, like blah blah blah. So she like introduces us, and we go like sit on the couch. She like gives me this like temporary tattoo, and we're talking. And then her friend is there also, and I could tell they're having like their little like female female communication. They're like eye contact and like whatever that they're like doing about her talking to me. And so we ended up like clicking, vibing, hanging out. I brought her over here. We were doing shots together. And we were like making out and stuff. And so everything was going like pretty well. And then I come to find out, so that she had a party to go to, like a dinner party. So she actually had to leave, and then she was like, oh, like, I'm gonna come back, like I wanna hang out with you and all this stuff. So, really random situation, right? Like I could never in my imagination have concocted this whole situation. Also, I come to find out that, our family friend, the woman who lives over here, told me after she left, she was like, oh, like, who is that guy? Like, about me. And she was like, you got to introduce me to him. And I have gotten like compliments before, or like girls that have thought I was cute, I guess, or whatever, but it's honestly pretty rare. And what's really rare is like a girl literally being like, oh, you have to introduce him to me, and then getting somebody else to introduce us. So yeah, so the whole situation was completely random. And like I said, there was no way that I could have envisioned this or tried to make this happen. This was just something that kind of unfolded naturally. And so I think that sometimes when we get like, oh, well, how are we going to get this to happen? you really just are following your intuition and going and doing stuff and being outside. Like, that's another thing, is like I randomly had this urge to go on a walk. And if I wouldn't have been walking there right then, they wouldn't have invited me over. I wouldn't have ended up meeting her, and the whole situation would not have happened. But when you're calm and relaxed and you're fully knowing, and like we talked about in that video, you know the end result. You know the end result is going to happen, but you are totally calm in the fact that like your current circumstances or the current 3D isn't necessarily reflecting that end that you know is coming. Then that's when the magic happens. But if you're stressed about the current circumstances, it's not as easy. And then you don't get those intuitive nudges. You don't receive them. Or even if you do, you're like, oh, you get in your head too much. You're like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah. So anyways, guys, I just wanted to share that. I know it's like a personal little story, but I really think that it's something that, I don't know, hopefully it helps you guys out, or hopefully you guys resonate with that, as it was surprising for me that it happened. Even me, who I, think about this stuff. I talk about this, obviously I have this channel and we're here to like discuss these things, but still it was like, okay, like, there it is. There is a perfect example of the stuff that we talk about here on the channel. And that's how you know that it's like not bullshit. Every once in a while, there's a little bit of doubt that I might have, or that I'm sure everybody has, which is like, okay, well, don't I have to actually do shit? I mean, and I do think that you do need to do things. Like, if I would have just sat on my ass here that day and not done anything or gone outside of the house, it wouldn't have happened. Okay. Now there's another just smaller example of, there was this other girl that was walking in the neighborhood over here, and she was handing out flyers because I guess they were doing like roofing or something. And she was like kind of cute, but I ended up talking to her while she was just like walking in the neighborhood. And so I was talking to her, vibing with her, and she basically, we were talking about where she's from, what she's up to. Like, she's like, okay, yeah, she works at Twin Peaks, which is, if you don't know, it's kind of like it's almost kind of like Hooters, where the girls are wearing like crop tops and like short shorts. And I guess they even wear like lingerie sometimes. I've never been there, so I know about it. I've heard of it, but she works there. And so we were talking about, and somehow or other it came up. So she's already married. She's actually going to be having a kid with this guy. But somehow or another, we segued the conversation into, she was asking me about what I do. And I was like, oh, well, you probably have like a bunch of cute girlfriends, right? Like, if you work at Twin Peaks. Because I was telling her that I'm like new, like kind of new around here-ish. I mean, I was like, I'm house sitting for my parents right now. And she was like, oh yeah, like I totally do. And I was like, well, yeah, like you should like introduce me. And she was like, oh, like, okay, like for sure. She's like, I have a friend who's single, blah, 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 blah. So that was just a random occurrence. And then the next day, she DMs me on Instagram, because I got her Instagram, and she just DMs me like the profile of the girl. And I was like, oh, like, did you tell her about me? And she was like, oh yeah, like I told her about you, like follow her. And then she sent me like a couple pictures of her. And to be honest, I'm not really that into this girl. She's just not really my type, but it's just another example of like, okay, putting out this calm energy that like, okay, it's like like, are you going to judge it as being like, oh, like, well, that didn't work? No, it's like birds before land. Like, always flip that into your advantage. Like, okay, maybe it didn't work with this girl, maybe it didn't work with that one, but it's still a situation that happened. It's still like it's like closer to your result than not talking to any girls or not having any situation like that happen. So it's all about your perception. It's all about the energy that you're carrying into it, and that you leave with it, because having a situation that didn't pan out perfectly and then getting all down about it, that's just not, you're not seeing it as birds before land. Now you're taking yourself away from the good trajectory that you were on. So anyways, guys, let me know what you guys think about this. If you guys have any responses or comments to these little anecdotal stories, I would love to hear them. And drop me a like, drop me a comment, hit the subscribe, and I will see you guys soon.